So you remember in the Pyramid 9/11 Meshuggah video, I made a claim that I believe the elite of this planet are aware of the ancient wisdom that originated in Egypt and are not only using that power for their own ends, but they're suppressing the knowledge of Egypt in the mystery schools so that we as civilians can't rise up and use it against them. Remember I made that claim? Well, I'm going to explain how I got to that conclusion, because that sure is paranoid, right? Okay, so the first point I'm going to make is the Chart Cathedral in France. That's right, Chart. So what's the Chart Cathedral? The Chart Cathedral is a church and also an institution of learning that was built by the Romans, the Roman Catholics, in 1180 AD, okay? So it's important to realize that the Chart Cathedral was built on a Druid monument to the pagan goddess Isis. Yeah, the Egyptian one, the one that's only pagan according to the Catholics. Yeah, because pagan is a word that was made up by the Catholics and the Christians. That's just the way that they differentiate themselves from all of the Egyptian mythology. Why do they need to differentiate themselves? Oh, because they didn't want anybody to find out that their entire mythology literally is based on a cosmic archetype. They just want all of us to think that they made it up. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that if they built one of the most important institutions of Western thought on top of a pagan monument, they're acknowledging that they knew the origins of, this Western religion, this Jesus Christ, Virgin Mary thing. Like, they knew that this is just the new variation on the ancient theme of Osiris, Isis, and Horus, right? So it's important to understand this because we have to really see that the suppression of knowledge that we are now still dealing with essentially starts at the Chart Cathedral. Okay, so what kinds of things are being taught at the Chart Cathedral? Chart. Well, mainly these things called the 7 liberal arts. What are the 7 liberal arts? Well, they're divided into 2 distinct categories. One is the trivium category, which is rhetoric, grammar, and logic. And the other one is the quadrivium category, which consists of math, geometry, astrology, and music. So, where did these 7 pieces of knowledge come from? Well, enshrined immortally in the Chart Cathedral's architecture, we see 2 classic historical figures, Plato and Pythagoras. Where did Plato and Pythagoras both spend a lot of time? Egypt. So if we see Pythagoras and Plato enshrined on the Chart Cathedral, we can at least make a connection that these 7 liberal arts came from the writings of Pythagoras and Plato, right? But if we know that Pythagoras and Plato studied at the mystery schools, then we know that these 7 liberal arts have their roots in paganism. Right? Okay, good. So who's allowed to study at the Chart Cathedral? Well, obviously only the elites, right? Literally 99% of the French population had no access to these liberal arts. These are only for the elites, literally specifically for the purpose of just empowering the feudal system, right? Okay, well, you know what's coming. You know what happens in France in 1789. I'll get there. But before that, it's important to go back to literally 1 AD. What's happening in 1 AD? Okay, we see the fall of the Roman Republic, but the rise of the Roman Empire. This is when Rome is trying to take over the world, right? In 1 AD or 1 BC, literally that time. That's Rome trying to take over the world. So they need some big old mind control technique to do this, right? How do they do it, right? Think about this. If you've read the Bible, or specifically the New Testament, you know about this character named Paul, or Saint Paul. He wrote a bunch of letters. He wrote to the Romans, the Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians. What do these letters consist of? They consist of the gospel, literally. he's talking about Christ. He's talking about Jesus Christ and all the great miracles of Jesus Christ. He's also telling the Romans specifically in these letters, literally the book of Romans, straight up book in the Bible. He's telling the Romans, hey man, stop persecuting us Christians. Like, I know you guys like killing us for believing in Jesus, but can you stop? I would appreciate that. This is an important point because it expresses the sort of irony in the fact that the Romans eventually take on the Christ narrative and become the Roman Catholics. So why were they persecuting Christians before this? All right, well, if you're familiar with Richard Carrier, nothing I'm going to say is a surprise here, but if you're not, I'm linking it below. So why would Paul, as a Christian who's being persecuted by the Romans, want to team up with his persecutor? And also, why would the Romans want to team up with Paul, who they're persecuting? Mind control. Mind control. Literally. Because Rome is trying to take over the world. How are they going to take over the world? Well, they know from studying history how it's done. They have to create a story. They have to make all of these people believe something. Now, what do they know from St. Paul's letters? They know that Paul is just talking about the ancient cosmic archetype of the sun who sacrificed and rises again. He's literally using the ancient mythology from Egypt. The Romans know this because they know their history. They're learned people. They know that like new variation on the theme has legs. It's rooted in ancient mythology. But it's just different enough where they can maybe hide the fact that it's literally a bastardization of something that already existed. And of course, they want to have creative license over this story, so they can't use the same Osiris, Isis, Horus thing because that's already pagan, that's already established. They got to have this new thing, this new Jesus thing, so they can ultimately say whatever they want. So Paul and the Romans have a mutual interest. Paul wants to stop being literally just like thrown in prison and all of his friends just getting like slaughtered in the streets. He wants the Romans to stop doing that, and the Romans want Paul's Jesus story for their mind control purposes. So how do Paul and the Romans work together? Well, they fabricate the whole crucifixion of Jesus, right? This is where you think I'm crazy, you think I lost my mind. Check out Richard Carrier, man. This dude, this has already been explained, okay? I am not the first to say that Jesus never existed. Now, the reason we know that Jesus never existed is because Pontius Pilate, the dude who so-called crucified Jesus, that guy never existed. If you go beyond Google and Wikipedia, you realize that the existence of Pontius Pilate cannot be corroborated throughout Roman history. He just didn't exist. And you got to really get into this stuff because now you're taking my word. You know what I always say. You got to do your homework. You got to do your due diligence. You got to fact check everything I'm saying. So the whole point here is that Paul and the Romans teamed up to create this monumental event in history, the crucifixion of the Savior at 33 years old, might I add. And this is the birth of Catholicism. The Roman Catholic Church and Paul come together and they create the Jesus story, the new cosmic archetype, the one that will last millennia. And it did. It literally has. It's literally lasted all this time. I mean, I'm still talking about it. Now, the reason I'm telling you all of this is just to show you how this misinformation works, right? You have to realize that Paul and the Romans originally had nothing in common. They essentially hated each other, but they came together because they realized that they could change history by using this new Christ narrative, because it had legs. Paul had followers. All right, so let's fast forward back to 1180 AD, and we're back to Chart Cathedral, right? Now that we know that the entire Catholic religion is literally built on a lie, we can see that a lot of the seeds of truth are at the Chart Cathedral, right? Why is that? Because the people who built the Chart Cathedral knew that they were building a cathedral on an ancient monument to the goddess Isis. That's not a coincidence, obviously. So those seeds of truth are embedded in France. Now here's where it gets interesting. Over literally 600 years, the feudal system has its grip on France, right? It's the classic 99% to 1%, right? The 1% has all the wealth, all the power, all the control, and that's what eventually leads to the French Revolution. But why does it only lead to a revolution in France? Why didn't Rome ever have to deal with a revolution like this? because the seeds of truth were in France. The fact that this Catholic institution is built on a pagan monument, that became common knowledge throughout France. That's what led to the French Revolution. Just the fact that everything we're being told, the suppression of knowledge about these so-called liberal arts, which were the mysteries of the time, those are being suppressed from the general public. Obviously, you're looking at a revolution, inevitably. I submit that that was the result of the fact that this knowledge, the fact that the Catholic Church was built on top of paganism, but paganism was so deeply demonized by the Catholic Church, that knowledge got out. And that's what led to the French Revolution. Now, keeps going, right? Napoleon. So Napoleon is 20 years old at the beginning of the French Revolution in 1789. Okay, what happens to Napoleon in 1799? Where does he go? What's he get obsessed with? He gets obsessed with Egypt. He goes to Egypt, he looks at everything, studies everything. There are endless quotes of Napoleon talking about Egypt. One I'll just mention real quick is, okay, Napoleon literally spends a night in the Great Pyramid. He's asked about it. What's his answer? You wouldn't believe me if I told you. That's what he says about what happened to him in the Great Pyramid for one night. I bet like Osiris showed up or something, you know what I mean? Like Napoleon sort of unveils Egypt and people realize that the origin of pagan religion is Egypt. That is credit to Napoleon. That's something to definitely consider. Okay, so what is happening as Napoleon is starting to write about Egypt? He's trying to spread the gospel of Egypt or whatever. Well, guess what? America is being formed at this time, right? Declaration of Independence is signed in 1776. So if you know anything about the city planning of Washington, D.C., New York City, and also San Francisco, you know that it's all based on sacred geometry, which references Egypt. Yeah, do you even believe me? You gotta find out for yourself. Links below. So that's what's led me to believe that the world powers on this planet understand the power that is Egypt and the power of the mystery schools, the power of the mysteries themselves. And they are actively suppressing that knowledge because they know how powerful it is. Now, here's the last point I'm gonna make. If September 11th, 2001 caused all of the tourism in Egypt to literally disappear for 12 years. Around 2013, people were starting to trickle back into Egypt for tourism. Then does it make sense that this current pandemic we are in might be some effort to stop people from traveling to other megalithic sites all over the world, like the ones in South America, the ones in China, the ones in the South Pacific? If you realize that your adversary, meaning the powers that be, the ones that are suppressing the knowledge, if you realize that they understand Egypt, you won't underestimate them. You won't think it's crazy that they may have somehow manipulated a global pandemic into scaring us from traveling and just seeing what's all over the world. Because I mean, we have people that are doing this. We have people that are talking about this stuff. We have Graham Hancock. We have Randall Carlson. We have people that are literally just traveling all over the world and being like, look at this, look at this, look at this. How do you explain this? And the answers to those questions lead to a road that I guess could empower the masses in a way that could maybe cause a revolution similar to what we saw in the French Revolution. That's all I'm saying, okay? That's all I'm saying, all right? Did that even make sense? Am I literally a paranoid schizophrenic? I don't know. I don't even care. Makes sense to me. Anyway, don't even subscribe. Just move right along. Keep living your life. Read stuff. Fact check everything. And realize that there is important knowledge in all of these subjects because of Hermetic symbolism. Hermetic symbolism is in Catholicism. It's in paganism. It's in the religion that is the westernized government. It's everywhere. So it's not just a matter of like, this is a good source, this is a bad source. All of the sources have truth. You have to study them for yourself to find what that truth is. So that's what I got for you, all right? Good.